Time of year, I often have people come to me and ask, what's the right age to introduce my kids to programming? And they're worried it's summer holidays, things to keep kids occupied, and all the normal worries that parents have. And I say, well, pretty much any age, really. You can have fun learning to program, and there's a fantastic tool around, developed by, I think it's MIT, called Scratch. And it really does make programming fun, and you can learn to program without actually knowing you're learning to program. You can just create games and have lots of activities. Now, the people that have come up with Scratch say that it's suitable for people over the age of 4, and I'm not an expert on that, but having used it quite a bit, I'd say it's great for kids of just about any age, from 4 up to about 50. So there we go, or even more, who knows. Scratch is a fun thing. It teaches you lots of skills, all the basics that you need to know, and it does it by means of where you play little games and you have adventures and you can create little storyboards, and I think that's what makes it so appealing to the younger people. They learn without realising they're learning. They're learning by having fun. And I'm going to be producing a few tutorials over the next coming weeks, which I'll put out on YouTube, showing you how to do and use Scratch and play around with Scratch and have some fun as well. Like I say, for kids for any age, really. Now, I also have to say to them, what is it you want to get out of introducing your kids to computing? Do you just want to have some fun? Do you want to help them develop and learn their problem-solving skills? Are you thinking of qualifications, maybe for a career in the future? Well, it's true to say programming courses and IT courses do count as STEM subjects if you're thinking of the education side of things. If you're thinking more of a career, then think what is going to be the most desirable skill from an employer's point of view. Now, Scratch is great to learn. It's not viable as a career option, but it teaches you all the basics, gets you set up for learning more serious things. Python is often said to be a popular language in schools these days. It is moderately easy to learn. I'd put it in the sort of medium category. But my experience with Python is, if you're not an IT user and experienced in IT, it can be very difficult to install and set up. And so the complexities of that really outweigh the simplicity of it. It's tried to creep into the commercial world, a lot like when I was a kid. BASIC was for schools, and it did try to creep into the commercial world, and it did with some success, and Python is pretty much taking over from where BASIC left off. It's commercially not a great language. There are lots of problems with it. There's no type checking, or very little type checking on variables. There's so much flexibility to make it easy that it loses the robustness that is required when you're writing any decent sized commercial project. So there's little bits of work in it, but not really. I'm a big fan for Python for what it's intended to do. It's good, but it's not all that its enthusiasts crack it up to be. Okay, what have we got next? There's the various scripting languages, very, very popular. Good for finding work. There's quite a bit of work out there. The front-end languages they're known as, or back-end. JavaScript, very popular. JavaScript runs in the browser, and it can run locally, but it's pretty much designed to be web front ends and do pretty things on the web front end. It has the advantage of it running actually on the user's computer and not on the server. So it can do stuff that's difficult to do if you're doing it on the server. Problems with JavaScript: it's improved a lot over the years, but each of the browsers are still kind of competing for their own space. They've not truly standardized the language. Like I say, it's better than it used to be, but it's still got quite a way to go. And it is worth knowing. If you're going to be a web developer, definitely have it as one of your skills as a web developer. PHP is very common on back-end side, which means it runs on the server, that's the machine delivering the web page. Reasonably easy to learn and very popular. Lots of big companies use it for quite decent sized projects. With scripting languages, this applies to JavaScript and PHP. They're interpreted languages, which means they're run line by line. That's a lot slower than a compiled language, which is where it's all converted into computing code before it runs. Also, it makes fault finding, or debugging as we call it, more complicated because you really have to run through it line by line, and it's difficult to find faults in advance, whereas with compiled languages, the compiler and some of the development tools will help you find problems before you actually get to run the code. So there's that. PHP and I think JavaScript have database connectivity, which again, if you're basing it on trying to earn money as a web developer, that's essential. So they're good in that respect. They're well worth considering, but don't expect that to be the only skill you need. If you're going to be a web developer, you need to know HTML, you need to know a whole host of other things as well, but certainly one of them. It's a good option. Java is pretty much the most desirable language to learn, and it's been very stable. It has lots of commercial advantages. You can write the code once in Java and it will run on any platform that supports Java. So that's Microsoft, Mac, Linux, OS 400 if that's still going, all sorts of platforms, pretty much anything that supports it. In its early days, it was obvious to see it was going to be the successor to C++. It has all the benefits of C++. I won't go into all the techie details, but it's got lots of technical benefits. But the big one commercially, you only write the code once. Before the days of Java, you'd have to write the code, the same piece of code for every different environment and platform you wanted it to run in, and even different versions often of operating system as well. So it's a big cost to a company. Java solves those problems. It's very, very desirable skill. It's not the easiest to learn, but it's definitely, if you're thinking of a career in IT, that's the one to go for. C++, lots of benefits. I started my career, well, actually in assembler, then moved on to C, and then C++, which introduced something called object-oriented. Fantastic language, but it doesn't have that one key benefit of Java, in that it's portable to an extent, but not as portable as Java. So Java has pretty much superseded C++. There is some benefits. C++, you can directly access the features of the computer you're running it on, whereas Java, because it has to run, the same piece of code has to run on many different computers, it limits the access that you get to them and the features that you can use of each specific one. So moving on, there is Swift. It's an academics language. It's only been adopted by Apple. It's still very much prototype level, and they are doing a lot of code changes, and each time they make a new release you often have to rewrite a lot of your code. It's not overly stable, but Apple needed to do something. Apple made what in my opinion was a big mistake, and it's partly down to their arrogance of Apple want to do things the Apple way. It doesn't mean it's the best way, they just want to do it different to everybody else. That's Apple's mentality under Jobs, and unfortunately it's still there. They chose Objective-C, which is like C, and they chose it around the time when C was very popular. It has many, many problems over C, which is why it didn't become common and popular. And it's because it didn't become common and popular, because it had so many problems and shortfalls, Apple adopted it. They knew no one else would. It secures their market. If you're thinking about a career in it, if you want to, I learnt it because I wanted to develop some iPhone apps. That's the only reason to learn Objective-C and Swift. Only reason. When I talk to agents I've worked with for the best part of 30 odd years, and they talk to me about all sorts of projects coming up, and I'm lucky I'm established and have a good reputation in the business, so I get to choose projects I work on. I'm very lucky, but it's taken me 30 odd years of hard work to get to this stage. I can afford to learn things just because they interest me now, not because I have to pay the bills. So that's why I learnt them. And when I say to agents, oh, by the way, I've been messing around with Macs and Apples quite a bit recently, and they say, oh, well, it's kind of fun, keep it to your bedroom. Well, what about work? Yeah, there's some. You're not going to pay your bills though, there's not that much of it. And it's very difficult to move. Once you get sidelined into that box, you're stuck playing that box. So do you want to develop only for Mac and only for iPhone for the rest of your life? That's probably not the best career option, narrowing yourself down. Mac has got very small percentage of the market, very small. I wouldn't choose it as my career option. It's too pigeonholed. There is not enough work that you can say, go to bed each night and say, yeah, tomorrow I'll get a job, tomorrow I've got work, tomorrow I can pay the bills. But it's your choice. It's kind of fashionable, but it's only really fashionable in the creative market. Graphic designers, audio, video people, they like Mac because they always make things look pretty on the front, even if what's going on behind the scenes is a complete mess. They make it a mess look very pretty, and that appeals to the graphics and artistic people. But that's a small percentage of what's out there. It's your choice as to which you choose. I hope that's answered some of your questions. So I did make a little bit of a list. Do you only want to do it for fun? Problem solving? Qualifications? Yep. It's covered the main languages. There's a new kid on the block, which is a Raspberry Pi, which I think is fantastic. It's very cheap, or moderately cheap in computing terms. And also it works well for really fun projects. You can do things like set up weather stations, do all sorts of video camera tricks. It's got webcams built, well, not built in, but you can attach webcams to it. You can attach all sorts of temperature sensors and probes and all sorts of things. But also the fun part for kids is you can hook it up and make it drive motors and things like that. So you can make robotic arms. You can program little Lego cars and things like that and have things going around automated. Loads of fun. I would have loved that as a kid. The best I had was an elastic band on some wheels, but there we go. Lego did bring out an electric motor with some batteries. That was fun, but you couldn't really control it, just go forwards and backwards. This, you can really do stuff. It's got all sorts of sensors. You could have it so that it finds its way around a room, and when it touches something it backs off, changes course, loads of stuff. So Raspberry Pi is definitely a good fun way of getting into computing. It's fun for, again, kids of all age. There's a whole load of 50-year-olds out there, myself included, thinking, wow, this is fun, and I can get a Pi for, the initial outlay is about £100 roughly, and then after that you can buy a new computer effectively for as little as £20-25. I think in the US it's roughly matched pound to dollar 1-to-1, so I think it's about $30, I think, in America, something like that. So it's cheap and cheerful. I say you only got the one big time cost. After that, it's cheap and cheerful. Run it on batteries, run it off the mains, all sorts of good stuff. Hook it up to a phone, send GPS information back, and yeah, really, your imagination is the limit. I hope that's given you some insight and you find it useful. Come back on the channel check the wiki. I always do really detailed articles on the wiki, which you can't cover everything on a video, and to be honest, you wouldn't want to cover everything on a video. So check the wiki, the links are all there. Please subscribe to the channel, press like apparently, and press the bell. I'm still new to YouTube, I don't know why that's important, but I've been told I should say it. Thanks for your time, hope you found it useful, and see you again soon. Thanks very much, bye bye for now.